Buhay! Welcome to the virtual presentation of the results, discussion, conclusion, and recommendation of my study entitled The Structural Relationships Between Motivations, Environmental Concerns on Pro-Environmental Behavioral Intentions in the Cultural Festivals in Region 3. I am Jay Aquino, candidate for Doctor of Philosophy in International Hospitality Management in the Lyceum of the Philippines, University, Manila. Before we begin, allow me to walk you through the proceedings of today's virtual presentation. Last February 29, 2020, my research proposal guided by Dr. Antonino Alejandro was acknowledged by the Claro M. Recto Academy of the Advanced Studies Dean and Panel Chair Dr. Samuel Chua and panel members Dr. Lilibeth Aragon and Dr. Pag-asa Nanet Rotairo, and the study was granted approved along with the recommendations and suggestions to further the study. In today's presentation, I would like to address the revisions through the summary of matrix of comments that was sent along with my manuscript with this virtual presentation. To enlighten you with my research, the central problem revolved around determining the effects of motivations and environmental concerns of festival attendees to their pro-environmental behavioral intention as mediated by the role of personal attributes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control in attending cultural festivals in Region 3. To be more specific, the study hopes to answer the following research problem. What is the assessment of cultural festival attendees in the level of motivation in attending cultural festivals in terms of intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation? What is the assessment of the cultural festival attendees on environmental concerns in attending cultural festivals? What is the assessment of cultural festivals attendees in terms of personal attributes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control? What is the assessment of the cultural festival attendees in the level of pro-environmental behavioral intentions in attending cultural festivals? Do intrinsic and extrinsic motivation have a significant and direct effects to the cultural festival attendees' personal attributes, subjective norms, perceived behavioral control, and pro-environmental behavioral intentions? Do environmental concerns have significant and direct effects to the cultural festival attendees' personal attributes, subjective norms, perceived behavioral control, and pro-environmental behavioral intentions? Do personal attributes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control have significant and direct effects to the pro-environmental behavioral intentions of the cultural festival attendees? Do personal attributes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control mediates the significant and direct effects between motivation and environmental behavioral intentions of cultural festival attendees? Do personal attributes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control mediates the significant and direct effects between environmental concerns and pro-environmental behavioral intentions of the cultural festival attendees? What are the issues, challenges related to the pro-environmental behaviors of the festival attendees, and how is it affecting to the motivation, environmental concerns concerning eco-friendly initiatives of the cultural festival attendees in Region 3? And lastly, what structural model can be proposed as a new body of knowledge in the effects between motivation and environmental concerns on pro-environmental behavioral intentions, contributing to the new body of knowledge using the theory of planned behavior relative to cultural festivals? This study utilized this conceptual framework showing the direct and significant relationships, the mediating effects of the theory of planned behavior along with the 11 hypotheses the study hopes to answer. For the methodology, the study is a sequential explanatory mixed method incorporating quantitative and qualitative assessment of data. The study used partial least square structural equation modeling to test relationships of the constructs in the structural model that is presented. To validate the results of the quantitative data, the study proceeded with an interview, and the results were content analyzed and presented using narrative themes. The study also conducted a preliminary data gathering in which the results provided foundation with the current issues concerning cultural celebrations in the region. The preliminary interview results were content analyzed and presented using narrative themes. The preliminary interview involved 4 provincial tourism officers, which duly and legally represent their provinces, and they have agreed with the informed consent and the interview proceeding. Meanwhile, the 461 participants of the quantitative data came from across Central Luzon and nearby provinces who attended cultural festivals in the region in the last 5 years. There are 6 festival attendees who agreed to be interviewed during the validation process, and they too have the same inclusion criteria with the other festival attendees who were qualified on the data gathering involving the survey. The study made use of 3 different research instruments: the survey questionnaire, meant for the quantitative data, which was tested by WARP PLS and gave measurement to its validity and reliability. And the 2 separate interview guide questionnaires are meant for provincial tourism officers and festival attendees, were reviewed prior the utilization using phased and content validation. During the data gathering, the COVID-19 pandemic happened and restricted the researchers' mobility to gather the data. The study proceeded utilizing the online platforms to conduct survey and interviews, which was assisted by the Tourism Regional Office. In total, the data gathering was completed in 4 months. The quantitative data used Coding Manual, SPSS for statistical computing, and WARP PLS for the partial least square structural equation modeling. The PLS SEM tested the validity and the reliability of the tools using the factor loadings, AVE, reliability measurement, and discriminant validity, of which results met all the requirements. To move on to the highlights of my virtual presentation, here are the results. Preliminary interview gave understanding to the structure and issues concerning the cultural festivals in Region 3. Provincial tourism officers mentioned that the festivals are celebration of crafts and anything that is abundant in their province and municipality. These cultural festivals highly reflect the culture being celebrated in their respective provinces, to which where the provinces get their popularity from. The festivals are non-for-profit and the event are produced for free. The duration of the festivals lasts from a day to a week, but the highlights of every festivals would only last for hours. The cultural festivals celebrated in Central Luzon are being participated and attended mostly by their local communities and residents. The cultural festival in Central Luzon are demand generators for spectators, and they produce huge foot counts, and they come in thousands in a span of 2 days to a week-long celebration. The bodies who govern the cultural festival in each provinces are mostly organized by the local government units, though some municipal festivals are managed by private sector, others are being managed by the local community. Hence, organizers of the festivals will be connected to the body who may have the initiative, funding, and governance. The common problems identified by the provincial tourism officers in managing a cultural festivals are solid waste and solid waste management, carrying capacity, funding and budgetary consideration, political issues, the management process, and continuity of the festival. The data that was generated from the tourism officers gave the understanding that solid waste and solid waste management may be the primary problem in the cultural celebrations brought by the festival attendees. To rectify the underlying issues on solid waste and environmental issues, the governing bodies may be one of the key implementers of a green behavior. Here are some of the evidences of the formal interviews that was conducted with the provincial tourism officers. For the quantitative analysis, we begin by understanding who are the cultural festival attendees. The frequency distribution shows that most of the participants are with the age bracket of 21 to 30, followed by 31 to 40 years old, and by category, they are the millennial groups. There is only a slight difference of 5.3% between male and female attendees. Most of the participants are single, they are employed, and they have attained college degrees. Most of the participants have attended the Giant Lantern Festival in Pampanga, followed by the cultural celebrations in Bataan, and making Bulacan the 3rd province to have its cultural celebrations attended by the participants. To answer the first four statements of the problems, allow me to show you the summary of results of the mean rating distribution for each constructs. The overall motivation of the participants have mean rating of 5.66, which was agreed by most of the participants, which means attendees have a positive intrinsic and extrinsic motivation in attending cultural celebrations. The highest mean rating distribution and assessment of all the 7 constructs is the environmental concerns, which means participants have high environmental consciousness. The predictors of a certain behavior coming from the theory of planned behavior, namely personal attributes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control, showed a mean rating of 5.78, 5.87, and 5.79 respectively, which means the participants will have a positive behavior in attending a cultural celebration. The pro-environmental behavioral intentions of the festival attendees showed that their behaviors may be subjected by many indicators and can be attributed to external factors aside from their attitude, influential groups, and ease of participation. It is, however, significant that they have pro-environmental behaviors outside the cultural festivals, and these are being carried out by their own initiatives. All the details of the mean rating distribution findings and analyses are presented on the manuscript. Moving now on the results of the PLS-SEM. In assessing a model using PLS-SEM, evaluation of the measurement model and structural model must be in place. Measurement model include tests reliability and validity. All constructs exhibit convergent validity, discriminant validity, and are highly reliable. The structural model requires the assessment of full collinearity, coefficient of determination, and predictive relevance. The assessment of the model fit and quality indices must also be in place. Based on the results, all requirements were met. These results are explained in detail in the manuscript and show that the structural model is fit. The structural model with parameter estimates shows the relationship of each construct. To answer the remaining SOP and hypothesis, the findings of the direct and indirect effects of each construct are presented using the mediation effects table. To show the direct and significant effects of the constructs, the path coefficient should be less than the p-value. Among the 11 hypotheses, only hypotheses 7A and 7B are not supported and all other hypotheses were approved. In details, for SOP number 5, the participants' motivation resulted a direct and significant effects towards the predictor of the theory of planned behaviors and the pro-environmental behavioral intentions. The study gave an understanding that having a positive motivation leads to affirmative ecological sound behavior that benefits a cultural celebration, and a positive motivation can encourage optimistic attitude, influence on support groups, and ease of participation. All hypotheses on SOP number 5 are supported. For SOP number 6, the current study have proven that having a strong environmental consciousness brings affirmative pro-environmental behavioral intentions, and it is positively affecting the attitude, support group, and ease of participation. A sound environmental concerns can be brought about by environmental awareness, which affects how an individual perceived an action which benefits the humans, natures, and living things that surrounds it. The study have established a strong relationship and connection between the environmental concerns, participants' attitude, support group, ease of participation, and pro-environmental behavioral intention. All hypotheses in SOP number 6 are supported. For SOP number 7, the study revealed that ecological sound behavioral intentions are predetermined by attitude, support group, and ease of participation of the festival attendees. How the participants behave in the cultural events have affected the festival in a positive way. Thus, the study showed that the theory of planned behavior is valid on cultural festivals, which aim to understand pro-environmental behavioral intentions of the participants. All hypotheses in SOP number 7 are supported. For SOP number 8, The study established that the TPB has a mediating effect between motivation and pro-environmental behavioral intentions. And the study suggests that attitude, support group, and ease of participation can positively change the pro-environmental behavioral intentions of the participants. Given that the motivation and TPB are positively measured, the study showed a favorable pro-environmental behavioral intentions among the participants. All hypotheses in SOP number 8 are supported. For SOP number 9, the research revealed that the theory of planned behavior's mediating effects between environmental concern is only limited to ease of participation, or also known as the perceived behavioral control. The attitude and support group does not influence indirectly with eco-friendly behavioral intention. This study further proven that participants' ability to do the pro-environmental behaviors is also attributed with other factors outside their attitude and peers, and it is concerned with policies, diversity of culture, and practices and awareness. Thus, the research provide an opportunity to investigate into the external factors that affects the pro-environmental behaviors aside from the participants' motivation, environmental concerns, attitude, influential group, and ease of participation. Hypothesis 7A and 7B are not supported, and only Hypothesis 7C is supported. For the qualitative results in SOP number 10, the qualitative assessment of how festival participants actually behave on cultural celebrations revealed a positive eco-friendly behavior which they observe and practice not only on cultural celebrations but they apply it on their daily activities. Their green initiatives has been influenced by their environmental awareness and the knowledge along with the influence of people around them. The research have discovered that it takes more than a positive attitude and behavior to apply and practice ecologically sound behavior. Their ease of practicing the pro-environmental behaviors, however, pose a challenge since it takes extra effort to go out of convenience and comfort that people are too accustomed about. The implementation of policies, cultural differences, and environmental awareness affects eco-friendly behaviors. Here are some of the evidences of the validation interviews that were conducted to the festival attendees. For SOP number 11, the use of the partial least square structural equation modeling, or also known as the PLS-SEM, created an opportunity in the tourism and hospitality studies since the method is relatively new in the field of research. The method proved a concrete justification of the relationships of the constructs being tested, and the use of structural models elevate a new platform to give understanding how the constructs affects each other. The theory of planned behavior was a classic model that was used in many studies to predict a behavior. And the current study on the festival tourism created a contribution by showing that the theory is applicable in predicting behaviors in cultural events and celebration. The model brought understanding how motivation and environmental concerns directly play a very vital role in positively changing the behavior of the participants, which is valuable to the environment and mass gatherings like cultural festival. In conclusion, it was evident through the use of partial least square structural equation modeling, or also known as the PLS-SEM, along with the in-depth interview, that the theory of planned behavior has a direct and significant effects between motivations, environmental concerns, leading to pro-environmental behavioral intentions. Based on the results, the study recommends the following. Utilize the structural model to create awareness and promote pro-environmental behaviors in the cultural celebrations in Region 3. Identify and enforce external factors that affects pro-environmental behaviors such as laws, policies, and regulations concerning the festival. Involve major stakeholders on decisions concerning cultural festival management, and provide training for the provincial and municipal festival organizers. And this concludes my virtual presentation. I am now subjecting myself for further questions or clarifications regarding my research. Maraming salamat po.